everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and welcome to another video. This is the second video in the Watagans series, and look, I haven't put a map at the start of this video because it's pretty straightforward. We're starting from the campground. Nice selection of Pajeros there ahead of us. This is a really fun trip. I don't often get the chance to wheel with a lot of other Pajeros, and there was a real good mix of Gen 3 and Gen 4 Pajeros on this trip, which was great to see. So as I said, no map for this one because we're doing German Point Road, which is literally just a couple of Ks from the campground. Literally come out of the campground here, turn right, 1 or 2 Ks down the road, turn right, you're on German Point Road. So I haven't put a map in for that reason. Now this was a lot later in the day than it probably looks from this footage. You know, it was sort of heralded as a bit of a night run. So yeah, that light that you can see is very much a twilight sort of light, and the GoPros are doing a pretty good job of amping up the brightness. I know it looks like you can see a fair bit of blue in the sky there, but it was a lot darker than what it actually looks. Now Steve, who organised the Pajformance Pajamboree, had kind of said, hey, let's do a night run, let's do German Point Road, it's going to be a really simple, easy drive. What became clear as we headed further down German Point Road is that Steve hadn't actually driven German Point Road in quite some time, so didn't really know the condition. And the first indications of what we might be in for was really when we were getting to this point here, and it started to get a little bit soft and wet and muddy. And that's when questions were being asked of Steve. What's this track actually going to be like? And that's when he said, well, look, I probably actually haven't driven this for a couple of years. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a choose your own adventure at times there. So German Point Road, like what I think is like a lot of the tracks in the Watagans area, is a one-way in, one-way out track. There is a really cool campground area at the end. And look, if we'd have had less numbers, this event may have actually been to camp at the end of this track. There's just not room for as many people as we actually had in this group. But it was a really good, fun track to explore. A few muddy sections here early on. And look, honestly, at this point, we're all sort of thinking, you know, it should be a fun little drive, but shouldn't be anything too challenging. Now look, if you've seen the highlights video that I posted soon after this trip, you've probably got a fair idea of what might be coming up. And yeah, the vehicle stopping was sort of an indication as well. So in front of me there, I've got Sean. Sean's driving a Gen 3 Pajero. This was about his 3rd or 4th time off-road in that vehicle ever, possibly ever. So he was definitely having a crack on this trip, and did a top job. Better than some of the rest of us in some instances. Not so much on this particular track, but more on Creek Road, which you'll see in the next video in this series. It was interesting to see the marked difference in some of the vehicles with factory lockers versus those that didn't have them, and what difference that made in terms of their ability to climb up over obstacles. So just another little mud hole here. I opted to sort of span that and practice my tyre wheel placement. There's Kieran. So Kieran was the only one on this trip that was actually driving a Gen 2. Gen 2 Pajero is probably on my wish list. Never driven one, but they're the old solid axles. Very traditional 4-wheel drive.
Confident?
This is fucked.
Don't worry about pedestrians.
I'm just worried about hitting the other cars on the other side, because I'm going to fucking send it. I don't have a choice. I don't have a fucking diff lock.
Alright.
So there goes Was, and he is sending it. So Gen 4 but no diff lock, and one of the rare Gen 4 manuals. And yes, this footage is slowed down so you get to see all the mud. Solid effort there. And no, he didn't hit anyone out the other side. So Sean's up next in his Gen 3. And he's hitting that with a good degree of momentum as well. And also made it through without
Easy peasy.
too much of an issue. So yeah, I was up next. Now I did miss a lot of the guys. We were fairly well back in the convoy, so didn't get nearly as much footage here as would have been good to capture. So I've opted for the safe option here and taken sort of the left-hand line to keep my wheels out of those main wheel ruts, and just coasted through very neatly. That's Steve's Padge there on the left hand side. He was set up ready to winch anyone. I think he'd had to winch the Ranger through. We did have a fairly long wait time at that obstacle there waiting for the Ranger, because it got well and truly stuck. Running road tyres, stock suspension, 5 weeks old from the dealership. So we've had a little bit of a shuffle there after that obstacle, and I'm now driving behind Dave in his Gen 3 Paginator. I'm not sure you got the full benefit of the sound there on that thing. It's got a note on it. I don't know how much of an exhaust he's got on that, but gee, it sounds good. You're not left wondering when you hear that thing coming which Pajero it might be. I've just opted to go straight through the middle there. Most of these bog holes, excepting the large one back there, have had really solid firm bottoms. This track doesn't look like it gets a huge amount of traffic. From what I've gathered from talking to Mick and some of the other guys that are local to this area, that bog hole is kind of there 12 months of the year. It just the depth varies. So I suspect a lot of people probably get to that and turn around, particularly if they don't have a winch or other vehicles with them. So this latter part of the track really didn't seem to be as well driven as the first part. A few more branches overhanging the track. And just on the right hand side there, that's one of the walking tracks. So scattered in amongst this area, there's a number of walking tracks as well that sort of link up with some of the four-wheel drive tracks. Try and dodge the tree there. Pretty typical of this section of the track. There's lots of branches overhanging, lots of regrowth, and yeah, I really just don't think that this latter portion of the track gets very much traffic at all. Really quite a scenic drive, as is often the case with the GoPro camera angle. You're not getting the benefit of the views, but sections of this track are reasonably elevated, and there's alternately views off to the right and left hand side of the track as you work your way down along here. And although there were a few vehicles in the convoy, everybody was sort of taking things at their own pace, and we generally weren't too bunched up. So yeah, the GoPro actually ran out of battery, and we're close to the end, so I didn't actually catch the very end of the track. So this is the campground area at the end of General Point Road, and there's a bit of flex track there as you just saw. So reasonably steep little ramp with a couple of wombat holes, where if you've got an IFS vehicle that flexes like a shopping trolley, which is most of them, you're definitely going to lift a wheel or two there. Good fun and bit of practice. Certainly gives you some confidence as well once you've seen a couple of people do it as well without incident. So you can see the front right wheel there's fallen in that hole, and then yep, there it is, and then as it comes up, the front right starts to climb, and then the back right falls in that same hole, lifting the front left pretty high, and yeah, you can literally reach out and touch the bank. Not really a risk of breaking CVs if you take it nice and steady like that. So that was Steve in his Pajero. We've got Dave in the Paginator here coming up. A little bit of mumbo there, as we'd expect from Dave. He's certainly making sure he can see where he's going, where he points that weapon as well.
The angry Page.
And this is Brent from Den Monkey. So he's got a YouTube channel. Brent puts some pretty good content out there, so by all means check his channel out if you get a chance. He does a lot of different things, not just forward driving related stuff, a lot of product reviews, that sort of thing. Nice wheel lift there, but very controlled. And yeah, that extra antenna he's got on the front is for a HF radio, so as opposed to your standard UHF, that's a high frequency, and you do need a license to operate them, as those of you who know what a HF or ham radio is would know. So it was our turn to take the trusty Paj for a run through this thing. You can see there that, you know, it is darker than it looks. The light from the headlights is sort of evident, but again the camera is sort of auto-correcting for that, and you can see how big of a hole that is on the right hand side and how high the banks are. So coming through here, your feeling is really that you're concerned about the top end of the vehicle actually hitting that bank. And there's that lift, and then just drive through it. Quite a collection of Pajeros there. That was Kieran's Gen 2 just on the right of that frame. Didn't get a lot of footage of Kieran this weekend. Would have liked to. Kieran's also got a channel and he's uploading more and more content. And here we are heading out from this campground in. A couple of nice little climbs here. And pretty sure that's Steve in front of me in his Gen 4. So yeah, in general I'd say, look, this track is not super difficult. The hardest part is probably the bog hole. If you take the right line, it's a pretty easy drive. I guess finding that, particularly if you're by yourself, might be a little challenging. You can definitely get it wrong. As you'll see on the way out. A little bit of erosion here and a few little steps to climb up over, but nothing overly difficult. Nice and steady pace, and the car will do the work and climb up over those sort of obstacles pretty readily. And yeah, not too long and we're back in amongst that fairly dense bushland with lots of the branches overhanging the track. So look, shout out to Steve for organising this event as well. He does a great job running the Pajformance group, and it was great that he organised this event, and so many people attended as well. not an easy thing to sort of coordinate and organise events of this sort. You got to get an idea of numbers and then find a campsite, and it's a pretty busy area, the Watagans. We did see a lot of people there. It wasn't like a particular long weekend or anything, so we did see a lot of people there. As you can see there, those overhanging branches, in that case, it's actually just knocked the GoPro out of its protective case there. Actually hit the latch and opened the case, and the GoPro's come out. No damage, fortunately. And yeah, not too long at all, and we're starting to get back to that wet section of the track. This is not the main large bog hole, just one of the smaller ones, and Steve's taking it nice and steady there. And yeah, before too long, we're back here at the very large bog hole. So I think on the way across, the Ranger was the main one that had an issue. So the theory is on the way back, we're all going to get this right, and nobody should get stuck. Gives you an idea of what we're looking at. That was just really soft, soupy mud, particularly in those wheel ruts there.
Hey, that's seriously fucked, mate. Shit if you know, windows up.
Can I go into something?
Steve has picked his line.
Okay, not now.
Here we go. Here we go.
And he's not feeling like he needs to add to the mud already on his vehicle.
Don't hit the tree. He's fucked.
So he's just idled in on the right hand line. That's pretty much the line I came through on coming the other way.
What?
That was no good for the footage.
So I decided I was going to try the centre line this time, but as it says on the screen there, not enough speed, not enough momentum. Almost, but not quite good enough. So yeah, as you can see, not nearly long enough run up, not nearly enough speed to get through that, and that was that. So Steve was good enough to come back and run my winch out for me.
You need a different bull bar. What kind of bigger hole?
Tell me about it. Just grab the hook and I'll winch it out for you.
Just discussing the fact that with this ARB bull bar that I've got, you really can't reach the clutch handle on my winch at all. It's lucky I've got in-cab controls for winching it out. It's a lot slower, but yeah, just really bizarre. Like obviously the worn winch that I have and the bar both came from ARB, and really the opening in the top of the bar should have been trimmed. I basically never use the clutch because you simply can't access it, and I have had a couple of times where we've used the clutch and I've not actually been able to re-engage it without a fair bit of difficulty.
It'll be glued out.
So as you can see, this is not much longer. There's 5 minutes to winch my car out. Here's the next guy's coming through. Definitely making sure he can see where he's going there. And again, at this point, people can sort of see where that right-hand lane is, or right-hand line, I should say, and making it nice and easy for those that don't want to get too much mud on the cars. So here comes the Ranger, I'm pretty sure now. Not quite, no, we've got another patch before the Ranger. Taking that centre line, but made it look a lot easier than I thought, that's for sure. And here comes the Ranger, and he's taking the right hand line that time, and made it quite comfortably. So everybody except me pretty much looked like they were making that through pretty readily. I'm tucked in behind Sean here again, and we decided to get going and push on. And we did get back to camp and actually wonder where everybody was. We thought they'd be right behind us, but apparently I don't think it was that big bog hole. I think it was another bog hole. Maybe the Ranger or another vehicle got stuck, and the recovery took a little bit longer. So we actually ended up getting back to camp a good 20 minutes or so before everybody else. Yeah, look, that was good because I still had to set up the swag and everything. So yeah, camp wasn't set up for me at this point, so didn't mind getting back, and I still had to cook dinner. So yeah, definitely dark by this point. You can see the headlights, are pretty clearly defining the track. So it's amazing how much light the cameras are still showing is in the sky, because it certainly didn't seem that bright at this point. Probably wouldn't have been nearly as confident driving this section of track if we hadn't already driven it on the way in. So had a fair idea of what was going on with these bog holes and what they were going to be like, and all of these had good firm bases, didn't have a lot of soft mud in them. It was really just water sitting on top, so it wasn't too concerning. And yeah, a number of different lines you can take through here. Footage is a bit grainy there because it really is low light. And look, I didn't put the spotlights on or run a high beam. Obviously I've got Sean right in front of me there, and didn't want to blind him, and I could see well enough with the low beam and the light from Sean's headlights as well, without worrying about running spotties or high beam lights to see a bit better. Just to be different, I decided to take the left-hand line there. I can't remember what line we took on the way through, but yeah, we're just about back out to the start of the track and just about done. So my brief visit to the Watagans area has certainly shown me that there's huge variation in the tracks, lots of opportunity to do all different kinds of wheeling, and it's just a really pretty area to explore. So back on the main track here and nearly back at camp, and as I said, you can see there the light in the sky. It looks a lot lighter than what it is. It was probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night by this time, and it certainly wasn't as light as that would have you believe. So back to camp and the campfire. Look, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and see you in the next one.